Hi everybody, Lone Wolf here. Welcome back to Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Just kidding. But, the purpose of this video, well, I do normally do video game play as well as animations and whatnot. For the purpose of this video, 3 years ago, I ended Monster Hunter World Iceborne on I feel like I ended it on a pretty bad note. But this video, in my opinion, is supposed to remedy that. You're free to disagree if you like, but anyway. Normally, I make gameplay videos and animations, whether it be solo or with my pack. But in this case, I wanted to try something different, to be honest. I'm not too happy about how my Iceborne series ended after looking back at my footage after so long. Doesn't mean I'm going to go back into the game and replay it. No. I feel like I've done my time there. I've pretty much beaten every monster here, and this video, I am going to be going over every single monster in the game. And I don't really do tier lists, but this one is supposed to go through both easiest to hardest monsters ever in the game. And before I begin, this is all my opinion. So any of you who disagree with my with what I'm going to do here, then you're free to contest it in the comments section of my video. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm after all. So with that being said, let's begin. I'm going to be doing this in order. F is the easiest, S is the absolute hardest. Ones you can't solo either. Or, in my opinion, I can't solo. I know everybody has found ways to solo monsters, but this is all my opinion, if anything. So, first monster on this list, Kuliaku. I have to say, I was very disappointed when I fought this thing for the first time. It was so easy. Honestly. It picks up eggs, it picks up rocks. It blocks with the rocks, causing deflection, but a blast weapon, or if you just aim for its body, it'll eventually drop the item, forcing it to actually pick up another item while stuck in the animation. But even then, it's still a punching bag. Mounting it is easy. Killing it is very, very easy. I disclude the event version of Kuliaku, the Final Fantasy one more specifically, because that was a joke, more so than anything. That one was 100% a joke. And it was meant to be hard for the most hilarious reasons possible. So, his items are okay, honestly. They're okay beginner stuff. Surprisingly, it's blast weapons or something like that, but overall, Kuliaku, easiest monster I've ever fought in the game. Next to it is going to be Great Jagras. Yeah, Great Jagras. I initially thought putting below Kuliaku, but then you have to look at its greatest Jagras form, and yes, that one does count. It's literally that's also a joke quest, but you get to fight that one more times than you do with Kuliaku's, unless you do SOS's, but those don't count either. I also rate this by how many times you can actually hunt a monster like this in quests. So this one for sure is a redoable quest. Greatest Jagras, largest version of Jagras. All the things that it couldn't do, it was able to do in that quest. Tremors were more so. It had a scream effect or a roar effect, causing you to get staggered. Its moves hit harder. Hilariously enough, the Devil Joe in the game very much was just afraid of it from start to finish. There was no turf war to be had about this thing, and he was hard. He was hard going into Iceborne, but he's just easy. He's easy now. You get the higher gear, and yeah, he is very easy basically. If you're in Iceborne, you're going into G rank or master rank now, and you come back and do this just to get decos, then he is easy. But if you're coming into this from World into Iceborne before Iceborne, probably here. But I digress. So, next one on the list is Tsitsiaku. Tsitsiaku is another easy one. All it can do is pretty much stun you with its camera-like frills it has. I hilariously put like camera like sounds for this in one of my Monster Hunter Iceborne videos, but he was very easy from start to finish. I never had trouble with Tsitsiaku. Very, very easy. Just either look away when he's about to flash you, or just just stay out of his line of sight. And he's actually very easy. Mounting him is easy. His kicks and jumps are a little annoying. Not really. They are a slight, just slightly. But that's if you're undergeared, which is not really possible with this thing. So that's pretty much just stay out of its line of sight and then just wallop on it for damage, and he's an easy go, honestly, on that. So, Puke. Poison. That's all he does is poison. And poison is very counteractable. Just bring antidotes. Scream effect, that's also blockable. It's pretty much a discount, it's pretty much a discounted Rathian in the earlier game, and its gear is pretty good if you're going poison. So pretty much avoid the poison, or make sure you have antidotes. That, and try to go for mounts. Clutch Claw especially, you can slam them into. You can just slam them. Another factor that goes into this list is how easily you can Clutch Claw onto them. So all these guys you can easily dominate with a Clutch Claw. But don't get dependent on it. That's where I stand on that one. But yeah, these are the 4 easiest monsters in the game, in my opinion. No issue whatsoever in terms of weapons or pretty much weapon matchups at all. You can use any weapon against them and you have no trouble at all, in my opinion. Now, next one on the list. For up here, bottom of E is going to be Great Gyros. Paralysis. And the fact that it just swarms you. It just swarms you with Gyros, basically. It's like a better version of the Preys, in my opinion, from the earlier games. Velociprey, Giaprey, Genprey, Velociprey. I think I said that twice. I think I meant Eaprey. Yeah, and its primary focus is paralysis, and you find them in the Rotten Vale. Yeah, make sure you have the gear for the Rotten Vale, and make sure you can avoid his bite. You can break his teeth. You can break his teeth to lower his effects. You can cut his tail off to lower his effects. The only reason he's above Puke and is not an F is because of paralysis. That's the only thing that puts him there, to be honest. But you want early paralysis gear for World and a little into Iceborne. Paralysis gear is definitely a must. It's a good thing. You can actually carry it into Elder Dragon fights as well. So I still see it here and there in other games. This game, I'm sure, also still has that. But it's been well over 2 to 3 years since I've actually touched the game, so that remains to be seen. But this is just from my experience going into the game from start to finish. And I still remember it. I never had trouble with these monsters. Gyros only paralyzed me a few times, but I was able to dominate pretty easily. And this is solo and against other monsters as well that you're going to be seeing on this list. Palumu. Wind pressure. A lot of wind pressure for this thing. Honestly, I think it and the Gyros... Actually, no. I think it and the Great Jagras are the memes in this game. Honestly, I can't tell you how many times I laughed every time it went into a turf war with Odogrin, and it just got walloped so easily. And that's exactly what you can do against it, honestly. few things to look out for, basically, is when he tries to, like, bounce on you. That's easy stun locking. You can mount him easily. You could break his inflated like neck so easily. His gear is not bad. Not one I'd recommend farming unless you are trying to get all the sets completed, basically. So, that one definitely. Tobikadachi. Oh, the times I got stun locked by this guy. I like his design, though. I liked his fight. All about it I liked, to be honest. Definitely one of the fanged wyverns I enjoyed hunting in the game, honestly. Okay, if I get a few of these wrong in terms of, like, species-wise, you can let me know in the comment section, and I'll respond to it. Just a misnomer. But I digress. Shock, Thunderblight, and Stun. You can easily get stun locked by this guy, but Clutch Claw makes it a lot more easier to catch him when he's in the trees, and avoiding his attacks are fairly easy. His bows, his weapons are good. I wouldn't say the same about his armor, but probably early game maybe. Yeah. While I consider Tobikadachi easy, I think he is a pretty fun fight overall, honestly. I always enjoyed hunting him on the side whenever I could, but I at one point never had issues hunting him. Only a few times I've actually went down to, like, his tempered form, but that was because I dealt with other monsters. If it was with other monsters, then he's hard. But this list also takes into account of how you deal with them in solo battles. So, that's where I put Toby. One of my favorite brute wyverns. One of my favorite brute wyverns of all time, honestly. One of them. Benbaro. I loved hunting him. I loved hunting him in the beta of Iceborne, and I loved hunting him throughout Iceborne. He's like my favorite prey whenever I hunt him. He's like, when you consider a wolf who pretty much goes and kills an elk or a caribou, that's how I feel whenever I go after this giant moose-like wyvern, basically. I think he's very fun to hunt. Never had trouble with him. Surprisingly, has a weakness to Dragon Blight. That's the weird part about him. His moves are very dependent on the terrain. So if you fight him in the jungle, he'll either have like a rock or he'll ram you with like a tree branch, and that increases his range. I think it's like in the volcanic areas, it's like blast or fire damage he does to you. Ice, pretty much, if you're like in the snowy areas, basically. Mind you, it has been a few years since I played, so I won't actually remember every single area of the game. But his moves are very dependent on the environment of the area, and the ailments he does are also dependent on the areas. He has a roar effect. He also has tremor effects. But overall, a very fun monster to hunt. Good gear too. I love Benbaro's gear. I actually used it for like an earlier version of in the earlier videos of Iceborne when I was still going through the story. I always enjoyed it, honestly, the gear. I loved using it in the beta as well, honestly. I recommend the gear for Master Rank, though. I very much recommend it. It's a good start gear when you want to get into it, basically. But hunting the monster itself, if you have like high rank armor, very solid, very easy. His moves are pretty predictable. Just dodge out of the way or try to slam him or soften his parts, and he's a fairly easy fight, honestly. There's really nothing to really worry about involving him. That said, Giratotus. This mudfish, this Pisces wyvern. He is very, very underwhelming, honestly. One of the few monsters in World that provided, like, water blight. He was very, very easy. you can take off the mud, and you can break his parts with water balls or moss balls. I think that's what they're called. Again, the memory's a little vague, but I still remember how to fight them. But yeah, you can get rid of the mud. You can take his parts off. I actually did use his gear grinding, and I used it in certain fights. I used his gear for like a boast that I did back in like the earlier days of Iceborne, but in the old world, not so much. A very easy fight. He just slings mud at you to like encase you, and he has some water blight basically. And that's compounded by the fact that he is also easy to deal with when Bareth is around. And the reason why Bareth is on the list here as well with Giratotus is because it's the same gimmick. Mud. Mud only takes you so far, and mud pretty much just slows you down. It doesn't have the same snowball effect or binding effect as it did in the old world games. But in this game, yeah, Water Blight is all these two do. Bareth is a fun wyvern to hunt. It kind of disappointed me a little bit on how he was in World in comparison to how he was in Tri or like in GU. He's much more fun in those games. In this game, he feels very trivial. It kind of disappointed me a little bit. I feel like he should have been a little higher up in terms of difficulty. But I digress. Next to him is Beatotus. Same skeleton, similar moves to the Giratotus, but is ice-based. And ice is still a threat in Iceborne, basically. He could burrow into the ground and make it harder for you to like hit him, but it's only delaying the inevitable. To be honest, you can run this even without a fire weapon, and you'd succeed. Yeah, an easy fish to hunt overall. Gear is meh. But let's see. Ice Blight is still a slight issue for stamina. I don't remember if he snowballs you or snowmans you. I mean, but I remember him being a pretty underwhelming monster. I would say for those who enter the game like from World into Iceborne for the first time, probably here. But I put him here, honestly. All ice-based. Just bring a fire weapon or make sure you have the right gear, and you're good to go on that one. Now, next one on my list is going to be Coral Puke Puke. Water element is still a issue, to be honest, and the reason why I put him above Bareth and Giratotus is because he's more frequent with the water attacks. And he could one-shot you if you don't have the right gear, but his moves are pretty telegraphed, and most of his moves come out of his tail. So if you cut the tail off, you pretty much take away like 1/3 of his moveset, basically. So a fairly easy fight overall. Definitely not as easy as Beatotus, but definitely easy in this case. Gear's okay. Fight is okay too, honestly. A slight upgrade from Puke Puke, but not a big upgrade. The key is just cut the tail off, and then you can just take him down into submission. All of his other moves are pretty trivial, and when he goes to collect water, he leaves himself vulnerable, basically. So, very easy monster overall. Not much of an obstacle. You know, I'm ashamed of myself because my mind pulled up a blank on this one. Because I have not hunted it that often back in World. Donagama. I'm ashamed that I've actually forgot about this monster because, let's face it, he's kind of adorable for like a small large monster, honestly. Fire and Blast are his two primary moves, basically, or status ailments. He rushes you. He shoots like pretty much fireballs at you that can either blast or like burn you with fire blight. But his mobility hurts him, and as such makes him an easy fight. His gear is okay. His weapons are all right for a good like early blast weapons going into in world, but he's adorable. He's adorable. I see different forms of like picture and media on him all over. He's not a bad monster. He's just meme worthy and slightly easier, honestly. Blast is still a threat though, which is why he's up here and not any lower on the list. So that rounds out E ranking, or E tier, for monsters here that are considered very easy. Now, you're going to notice some changes going into this. So, Viper Toby Kadachi is the bottom of D tier, and poison and paralysis are what carry him, basically. That and his agility. The poisonous bite you have to worry about. His poisonous spikes are another issue. If not for the environment, he'd actually be a little harder, honestly. The environment definitely hurts him, especially in the icy areas where you can actually cause avalanches, or if you cause like icicles to fall onto him. But as long as you have the right items around, or if you are running a set that doesn't have like status ailments, this guy is pretty easy. His gear, though, is okay, honestly. I like him a little bit more than regular Toby, only because of the little spike in difficulty in terms of him, honestly. So, Viper Toby Kadachi, if not for the poison and paralysis, he'd probably be right here. But no, he's bottom of D. All right, Legiana, one of the flying wyverns of this game. Ice Blight is another issue, but the fact that makes him so annoying, I can cover this right now. Just get this out of the way. I put these two together, right where they need to be here. Honestly, they really don't have much working for them aside from like ice. If you're not prepared for Ice Blight, then you're not prepared to fight these monsters. And there are a few quests where they're together, especially when they're tempered. So if you can't separate them, or if you can't take advantage of the environment, you'll get creamed by them easily. And you can get stun locked if they scream you to death if you don't have high earplugs, basically. So if you can get around that, and you can actually try to mount them and like clutch claw them into each other, like make them butt heads with others and cause like other turf wars, then they're not that bad. I think they're like a balance. I think they're like a balanced monster more than likely. But I like the Shrieking Legiana variant. It just doesn't have much working for him compared to others you're going to see higher up on this list. Now, going into some annoying territory. Nightshade Paolumu. Oh boy. The stories and the content I have of me being put to sleep by this guy. Sleep is very annoying. I think sleep and paralysis are the two most annoying status ailments in the series ever. If you don't have energy drinks, you're gonna fall asleep fast. And this guy loves to spam the sleeping gas that he pretty much hides in his neck, basically, when he inflates himself. His moves are a little better than Paolumu's, but the sleep is what carries him to D tier. Honestly, it is very annoying to deal with him. If you can't maneuver around the gas, or if you don't have like energy drinks, even your temporal mantle, if you don't have that set, you're gonna be trolled by this guy pretty easily because of sleep and stun lock too. He sleeps and stun locks you, from my memory. He is an annoying fight. He is an annoying fight, but not that bad if you're properly geared and prepared. So, exert caution when you're fighting Nightshade Paolumu. Now, Diablos. Kind of sad. It's kind of sad Diablos is here and not like up here. I remember Diablos being a lot more tougher in the earlier games. He rams you a lot. He burrows into the ground and like pretty much just rams you underground. I think he doubled his rams in a game or two. Honestly, his scream is what disorients you so hard. But the damage isn't as bad as it was in the earlier games. Honestly, he's received quite a bit of a downgrade from GU. Honestly, if this was GU, honestly, if this was GU, he'd be up here. But I digress, honestly. Ice weapons are required. You can Sonic Bomb him out of the ground, and then you could combo. You could combo if you get the timing right when he pops out of the ground and is airborne. You can stun lock him, by flashing him and having him fall to the ground, so you can wall up him for a little bit to break his horns. Once he loses his horns, it makes it harder to try to maneuver away from him, because sometimes he can get his horns stuck into like objects. But yeah, his gear is worth quite a bit in World, just not that much in Iceborne, honestly. I feel like that one definitely, it's a sad downgrade, but a needed one, because Diablos was more annoying in the earlier games, to be honest. Just not that bad, honestly, especially with the open world aspect of it. The environment, like the others, it does hurt him. It does hurt him if used correctly. Like the fissures, that also hurt him. That also hurts him, especially since he goes underground. He's also a good command tool to deal with other monsters as well. The screeching birds are also a good substitute if you don't have sonic bombs, so you can get him out of the ground when he's buried. So the environment 100% hurts him, and that's why I feel he's not higher on my list. Basilgeuse. Yeah, this egghead was a little annoying. He was not that bad, honestly. He does Fire Blight more likely, but his weapons are Blast Blight. His weapons are very much worth making. They are very good. They are very good in World going into Iceborne, I have to say. I talk pretty high about Basilgeuse's gear when it comes down to it. I think it is really good gear going into Iceborne. Yeah. He spams the eggs, and it makes it hard to approach. But if you can maneuver yourself around the eggs with the Temporal Mantle or with Rocksteady, he's not that bad. You can use Rocksteady to get away from his scream that disorients you. What makes him annoying is not just the eggs, the exploding eggs he lays, like a napalm bomber or anything like that. It's the fact that he invades other hunts, making him a little more harder to deal with. So, as long as you know what you're doing, Basilgeuse is not that bad. But you're going to have a hard time dealing with him if it's your first time going up against him. That I promise you. Let's get this part out of the way, honestly. I don't want to do these next two individually. And my pack members can already sense where I'm going with this. Fuck Radabon. Fuck Aragon. I hate these two brute wyverns. I hate them. I very much do. Their arena quest was horrible. Their arena quests were horrible. They both slam their chins down the ground. They both fling nuggets and bones at you. They both roll, and in Radabon's case, they spin. It spins, basically. But what makes Aragon more harder than Radabon is the fact that when he rolls in this game, he flings nuggets at you while rolling. So he clusters. He clusters you, whether you like it or not. I hate that aspect. Oh my god. It's not the roll that makes me hate Aragon. It's the chin. It's that crimson chin that he sports when he fights you. It stun locks you, and it tremors you. Every time. Oof. And the arena quest, when you're dealing with both of them, oof, it is hell. It is hell if you're not prepared. You're stun locked by both of them. And when they're not dealing with each other, they're going to deal with you. And they are both not a good time. I hate fighting them with a burning passion. I really do. Honestly, it's either you're dealing with a lot of bones that you can break off of the tar that's on Radabon, or you're dealing with like the nuggets that that Aragon pretty much flings at you on a daily basis. He puts you to sleep with his gas, but that's pretty much it involving him. I have a lot of salt with these guys, but I don't think they're that bad. They are just very, very annoying to hunt. They are one of the most annoying hunts I've had to deal with in World and Iceborne. I hated hunting them. I still do. I still have flashbacks to the arena quest where they're both there. I still have flashbacks. Whew. My god, did I hate them. Okay. Now, this one is going to, this next part is going to make some of you raise eyebrows. Devil Joe's not that hard. In this game, he isn't as buffed as people would think him to be honest. I mean, only a few buffs to his Dragon Breath, a couple of move changes, but overall, they weren't that bad, honestly. I mean, true, when I first fought him, he wasn't like... I mean, when I first fought him, I had a little bit of trouble, but that's just par for the course for other monsters. But this guy, he eats anything that moves. He is called the World Devourer for a reason. So he has defense down. He has Dragon Blight. His Dragon Blight isn't as bad as it was in like GU or like in earlier games. His damage isn't that bad either. Actually, I didn't see any issues with him, to be honest. He is fairly... He's hard, but not that hard, honestly. I don't think he's that bad. And the fact that he's the bottom of C tier, where things start to get a little more difficult, consider C tier to be like medium, like the medium of the barrel for monsters you're gonna come across here. So C tier is where the learning curve starts to shift. So Devil Joe has been notoriously hard in numerous games, and a lot of his moves can either like stun lock you, could like scream at you with disorientation, could tremor you. His pin could eat you alive, literally, if you don't have like dung bombs available. Pitfalling is a little more dangerous because he can actually attack you while he's in the pitfall trap compared to a shock trap. But if you're behind him, it's easily avoidable, honestly. Or if you're like away from him, like at a distance, and you throw tranks at him, it's not that bad, actually. It's not that bad at all. I don't think it is. So yeah. Bottom of C tier is Devil Joe in terms of difficulty. And that also includes his tempered form, honestly. He's not as bad as the other monsters I'm going to go through in this list. So, Valhazak is C tier. I like this wave. I like this Elder Dragon. This Elder Dragon is by far the easiest in this game. Very much so. He uses the environment to his advantage. He is one of the monsters that I like where he uses the environment to get stronger and to improve himself. His breath can easily just hurt you pretty badly if you do not have a resistance to the environment in the Rotten Vale, basically. I forgot what the ailment was. So he shoots miasma at you through his breath, and that can easily disorient you and can like very much ridiculously lower your HP. But what I discovered is, while this is a strategy you have to worry about, it's not really one you have to really. It's not that bad, honestly. It's even more doable when you actually make his armor, as a matter of fact. But before that, you can avoid his attacks. You can try to use what you can to mitigate the effluvium damage that he does. So, Dragon and Fire are his weaknesses, and if you break apart a few of his parts, he's actually a lot more doable at that point. But for the first time, you are gonna get walled by him a little bit, but not by much. His Arc-Tempered fight is actually the first one I actually soloed on my own, as a matter of fact. I used to hunt him for fun in World when he was an Arc-Tempered monster. I did enjoy fighting him. If you have an armor that has some resistance to effluvium or miasma, basically, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about fighting him with it, to be honest. Temporal is I would not recommend Temporal if you're dealing with like the effluvium itself, because you're gonna get damaged no matter what. You just have to figure out a way to like work around it, basically. Range doesn't matter either because of the environment. This is one of those monsters that takes advantage of the very surroundings it is in. So do beware of the Valhazak for your first fight, for your first go in for this. So, now for one of the immortal monsters in this game, Zor Magdaros. The first Elder Dragon you fight in this game. Kind of. Biggest monster in the game. His fight is kind of boring, I'm not gonna lie. I actually would rather do Lao Shen Lung than this guy, because you're just spending like a good half of the hunt just trying to break the cores, and more so than that, when you're not dealing with that, you're dealing with this guy. But when you're dealing with him, it's honestly not that big of a schlep, because it's just fire damage, and you can predict when the cores erupt when you're doing the first phase. Second phase is by far one of the most boring parts of it, honestly. You're just loading cannons, you're just doing like Dragonators, and you're doing like Ballista to them, honestly. I found a way to break his horn, or to deactivate his horn, when going into the second phase. You can either mount him on his head and start hacking away at his horn, or you can use Ballista at the right angle to hit it, making it so you can actually deactivate it, and you have to deactivate it twice for it to work. But it's very easy to do. The real issue with Zor Magdaros is the time and DPS. If you don't do enough, then the quest is over, and he destroys the fortress, basically. It's probably one of the most boring fights in the game, honestly. But his gear is worth it. I do like his gear. I used to use it going into like in the old World games. You're not going to see those because that was long before I even started recording videos, but it was fun to use, honestly. I enjoyed using Zor Magdaros' parts. The hunt itself was just not fun. It was pretty boring. Now, Nergigante, the Elder Dragon Eater. Yeah, this guy in his Arc-Tempered form was not fun. I did not enjoy hunting him in his Arc-Tempered form. He was very hard. But what makes him unique of the other Elder Dragons is not just the fact he hits hard, but the fact that his HP is lower than the other Elders, basically. Outside of that, his rushes can easily pressure you. His spikes, his regrowing spikes can easily pressure you. Breaking them doesn't really help because he just regrows them. This is one of the monsters in the series, probably one of the first monsters in the series, next to like Tiestra, that actually has the ability to regrow parts that are broken. So this guy was a nightmare in one of my nightmares in World, going into Iceborne because of his Arc-Tempered form. But the gear's worth it. but the gear's worth it for some good DPS. But his moves are not something you want to, like, sneeze at. I liked hunting him, though. Just not his Arc-Tempered form. His Arc-Tempered form was horrible. But I liked hunting him. His gear was worth grinding for, as a matter of fact. Just not something I used often, because I liked other gear better. You know? But, yeah, if this was World alone, he'd be up here. But this is Iceborne, so he is in C tier, where the difficulty curve you can definitely see. He's one of those walls you have to run into and defeat before going into Iceborne. That being said, speaking of which, Xeno'jiiva. Xeno'jiiva, I believe, does a combination of Dragon Blight, Fire Blight, and Blast Blight. I think, not 100% sure, but his phases are interesting. And according to the lore, he's just an infant and evolves into Safi-Jiiva. I'm not even there yet, but this guy back in World was he was interesting to fight. His size very much benefits him. It's the size factor that makes him more difficult than the others, honestly, but not as boring nor as trivial as Zora Magdaros. The phases alone are very fascinating, honestly. Uses the environment to his advantage, and a lot of his moves could easily one-shot you, especially in his Arc-Tempered form. His Arc-Tempered form was ridiculous to hunt. Not as bad as like Valhazak, but yeah. If we're talking Arc-Tempered, these guys are close. Since this is a form of difficulty on the tier list, I think these two are very, 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 very close. So, any of you can agree that these two are like right next to each other in terms of Arc-Tempered, honestly. They are quite the threat, I gotta say. But the gear is worth grinding for. So, I'm gonna be brief with this one. I'm gonna be brief with this one because this is an event monster, and they're the Leshens. They're the Leshens, basically. So, you got regular Leshen and Ancient Leshen, which are, they do bleed. They bind you with their roots. They send their crows at you. Fire is the play for them, but the amount of chip damage and the amount of, like, stun locking they do, and the bleed aspect of it, is what makes them difficult, honestly. I don't think their gear is worth it, in my opinion, unless if you're trying to do a cosplay build with, like, The Witcher. So, you have fun with it, honestly. It's a mixed bag for me. I can't say I enjoyed it. I can't say I didn't enjoy it either. It was one of those fights that was, like, meh to me. I'm not a Witcher fan, so don't hate on me for not enjoying the Leshen fights. They were just something I just wanted to get done. I hunted every monster at least once, and I can at least explain a good portion of them to the best of my ability. If you think I left anything out, you can tell me in the comments section of this video. I'm fine with it, honestly. I am fine with it. So, yeah, and that rounds out C tier, where you come across monsters that are where the difficulty starts to shift, where it starts to shift into a specific direction. So, going into B, where you come across some level of difficulty, and the level starts to go up a little higher as it goes. So, Rathian. Yes, she is still annoying to this game. The stampedes that she does stun lock you, poisons you, burns you. The damage output for Tempered Rathian, yeah, I'd say is a little more difficult, especially since this is one of those monsters that's carried over into Master Rank that is actually a threat, as a matter of fact. Now, think of it this way. You got Rathian and you got Diablos down here as one of the monsters that goes in the Master Rank, and you can see why they're in two different tiers. While Diablos' abilities are very telegraphed, Rathian's is a little faster than this one. And when allied with Rathalos, she is a threat, basically. Her Tempered form is pretty hard. Not that hard, but hard. Um, yeah, I mean, the event monsters may be considered a little higher than Rathian. The Leshens, I don't think so though. I think the Leshens are easier than Rathian, to be honest. Yeah, it's the fact that she can stun lock you and make it harder for you to heal yourself from poison. It's not as bad as other monsters on this list, but the fact that she can do that is why she's up here, honestly. That and the fact that she hits hard. Especially. Anjanath. Yes, Anjanath is up here, and he is hard. You go into World for the first time and you hunt him, you're gonna have a hard time. His fire blast, if you're not, his fire breath, if you're not prepared for it, can one-shot you. It's happened to me numerous times in World. Honestly. I have his gear is okay. It was too much geared for artillery, but Anjanath is an okay brute wyvern, but is slightly harder, especially with the tempered variants. Well, Radabon and Aragon are just very annoying. Regular Anjanath and tempered, yeah, he can give you a little bit of a run for your money if you're not properly geared. But that's beside the point, honestly. He's an okay monster overall. Rathalos. These two are very close, honestly. But I think Rathalos is slightly better. And he got a slight buff going into World and into Iceborne. For his tempered form, he is very annoying. Loves to stay in the air. He triple spams fireballs in the air now. He slams his tail now. He can stomp you, similar to Rathian. And yeah, poison is still a problem if he stomps you. Fire is still a problem. He can disorient you with the roar. A lot of aerial game is what makes him hard. And grinding for his gear was actually a little bit of a schlep for me when I first dealt with him. But even then, he is a pretty balanced monster. Just too much in the air. Try to give him some more ground moves and flying moves at the same time, and we'll have some good times with him. There really isn't much to say for the basic Wraths, to be honest. But they're okay. They're okay. It's their tempered forms that keep them up there, honestly. And again, I take into account of all tempered monsters and their variants going into the game. So that's where the debate comes in, basically, for me. Now, Lavasiath. Tempered Lavasiath, the event that gives you decos, very much dwarfs these three. Because the lava can actually one-shot you. He can rush you pretty hard, and his damage has pretty much been scaled a little higher than these three. When it comes down to lava attacks and his moves, so exert caution fighting this Pisces Wyvern, because he could be annoying, and the lava can very much hurt you. So if you're farming for decorations, be wary. Be wary because, yeah, this guy can give you a run for your money. A couple of my pack members don't like him because of their experience with him in World. But yeah, I liked hunting him. I never had trouble with him. Mind you, I have been one-shot by his lava breath, by his lava attacks before. The ones where he charges it, those are one-shots usually. But they are avoidable. It's the delayed explosion that makes it a little more hard to telegraph, but every other one of his moves are easily counterable, and the water aspect you can go against him with easily hurts him. So he's not that bad, but he is worse than the three here, to be honest, in terms of difficulty. One of my favorite fanged wyverns in World, next to another on this list. And that is Odogaron. Bleed. Bleed is a good aspect form, honestly, and he can punish and rush you down, making it hard for you to heal against him. When he eats meat, he gets stronger and more fierce. They made that more so in Iceborne than they did in World, and they did a good job doing so. That makes his tempered variant a little more difficult, especially with the fact that he does not let you heal. And it makes it hard for you to heal bleed unless you have like sushi fish or jerky, basically. But yeah, he's a solid monster to fight. I like hunting him. His gear is top notch. Very good on the crits department. I loved using his dual blades. Honestly, his turf wars were fun too. I liked watching them. So yeah, Oldogren, definitely harder in his temperate state, but they are close. They are close. Now, Tigrex. Yes, Tigrex got a slight buff going into Iceborne. His stampede into spin is a little bit of a problem. Mounting him is slightly difficult because you have to angle where you're going to be stabbing in order to take him down from a mount. His head is the safest area when he spins. Otherwise, he can easily knock you off if you're not careful. His roars still blast you and disorient you. Otherwise, his moves are pretty telegraphed. But the damage output and the speed, especially since he won't let you heal, is why he's above Oldogren and Lavasia. That and the fact his tempered form can get pretty crazy, especially in the Guiding Lands. Now, Nargacuga. Yes, Nargacuga. Honestly, I contemplated putting him like below Tigrex or a little like up here, but Nargacuga is pretty balanced. Probably the most balanced I've seen him in the series. Honestly, his movement was reduced, but he got a bleed effect from his needles. They reduced the amount of times you break his tail, and outside of that, if you're not careful, the damage can hurt you, and the chip damage. That's why he's above Tigrex. His fight has always been fun to me, but he definitely feels slower in this game. But still a fun fight overall. You could Sonic Bomb him to disorient him, to get him angry, so you can have him go into a pitfall trap. Any of you watching this coming from playing the game for the first time, don't pitfall him when he's not enraged. Otherwise, he'll just jump out of it. Do it when he's literally angry, when you see the red eyes, basically. Breaking his parts are they're okay if you like soften them. The fact that he jumps around a lot makes it hard to clutch claw him. But once you actually soften him and break the parts, he's actually quite easy, honestly. His wings are the hardest parts to break, though, I think. It bounces after a certain sharpness, which can be overturned with Mind's Eye. Outside of that, Glavenus. Yes, I love Glavenus. I like Glavenus is one of my favorites of the Fated 4 back in Monster Hunter GU. He got a nerf in his speed. But he's still a threat in Iceborne. He's not someone you want to deal with if you're not prepared. He is pretty fast. His tail attacks still hurt you pretty bad. The speed nerf was necessary because you're going into a slower paced game. The slower the game, the slower the monster. So yeah, he still hurts pretty bad, especially in his tempered state. Fighting him in the Guided Lands is also a given, especially when he's tempered. So be careful. Be careful hunting him, especially. His gear is really good. Wish it was better designed, but his primary use is pretty much fire. But if you could telegraph his moves, he's not that bad. I'd probably put him lower if not for the damage output and how much of an issue his tempered form can be. Acidic is above him, slightly better, and The reason why I put him a little above Glavenus is because you hunt him in the Rotten Vale. His tempered form in the guiding lands is tougher. The acid causes defense down, and his tail is unpredictable at times. So you have to really know what's going on with that tail in order to fight him. The way he uses the tail too is actually more interesting, to be honest, but doable. A lot more doable. Fire being his weakness, surprisingly, since he's the subspecies to Glavenus, who is a fire wyvern. But still a challenge. Defense down can hurt you pretty bad. Unless you're running like Divine Blessing, or if you just don't get hurt by the acid, basically, and you're good to go. You have to figure out the right time to cut his tail off, because it's definitely different from how regular Glavenus functions, with the sheathing mechanic that they do with their tails. But their gear is still worth getting, to be honest, in my opinion. A good solid fight if you want to have some fun. And for the veterans who are nostalgic for Glavenus, basically, like I was. Black Diablos. She hits like a train, and she is a little more unpredictable than Diablos. Tempered, and she rams you. After roaring, it's a one-shot if you don't have the right gear. She is definitely harder than regular Diablos in tempered form, and regular, especially in Master Rank. Honestly, I've died to her numerous times in tempered, but her gear is worth it. Actually, her gear is actually really good when it comes down to like her weapons. They're actually really good. She's worth the grind if you want to go after her, but she can get annoying with all the ramming speeds, especially. She's the good description of being hit by a train. That's literally the best way to describe Black Diablos. Same weaknesses as Diablos, but a little more unpredictable. And the turf wars actually help too. But the fact that she does more damage and she's more she's more feisty than regular Diablos is why she's above them. And why she's in B and not in C or D of my list. Pink Rathian and Azure Rathalos. They are right next to each other. They're just better Wrath. They're just better Wraths, basically. The unpredictability of Pink Rathian's tail is more exploited here. And the more damage aspect and the speed aspect of Azure Rathalos is also showcased here as well. They were very annoying to fight going into Iceborne, and they're a little more. They have a better like lock game than the regular Wraths, but their gear I feel is forgettable. Their gear I definitely feel is forgettable compared to the other monsters on this list. So, honestly, my strategy for the Wraths is Flash Bomb when they're in the air and try to knock them down in the air as quickly as possible to land as much damage as possible. Cut off Rathian's tail as quickly as possible to remove like a good 40% of her moves, because it reduces her range. And that's pretty much it on that one. There's really not much else to it for these two, to be honest. More damage and a little more extra moves. Just not really ones that are like memorable, is the thing. But they're okay. They're okay to hunt. I think Azure Rathalos' gear is crits. I think it's high crits. Not 100% sure. I didn't actually farm them for parts for their gear, but they're okay. They're okay. They're just better Rathalos and Rathian, especially tempered. Bariath. Fuck Bariath. I hate fighting this bitch-ass flying wyvern. I hate fighting it. This wyvern, compared to, like, Nargacuga and Tigrex, is probably the most mobile in the game. If not for a couple of my pack members who told me about its wings, the fight wouldn't have been more doable. Honestly, you break the wings and it slips when it lands on the ground. He can pin you. Pins in the game are a lot more, or you can easily get punished more so in this game for pins than in any other. But oh my god, this monster just loves to move around, and it's very, very hard to deal with greatsword. I hate hunting Bariath. Very annoying. Honestly, the only joy I get from killing Bariath is breaking its teeth and using them as chopsticks. That's literally the best way I can describe my experience with Bariath. I hate them. You want to know what my hated monsters are? It's Bariath, Radabon, and Aragon in World. That's where I stand on that one. Ice tornadoes, a lot of lunges, a lot of thrusts that I can do against you. It's a very punishing monster if you don't know what you're doing. So yeah. Again, fuck Bariath. Anyone could disagree with me with that, but I hate Bariath. I hate him very much. His gear, I've been told, is worth it, but I have no desire to hunt him or to grind for him. It's just not worth it to me. I'd rather keep my sanity intact than fight this jumping and skidding monster. Oh my god. Alright. Yingaruga. A mixed bag to me, to be honest. I don't know. It feels like a slight nerf. A slight nerf in terms of like his screams that it was so known for in like the earlier games. Slightly. The fireballs are the moves are a little more predictable. It's a little slower, but the poison and the punish, and basically the way it punishes you for healing, is why it's above. The beak has always been annoying to me, especially when he slams it down. He can stun lock you with it. The roars are what make him a problem, but not as badly as it was in like the earlier games. Poison 100% carries it, especially in tempered form, but it is not that bad, honestly. Not as annoying as Bariath. Not as annoying. But the gear, I feel, is grindable. Definitely somewhat of a challenge in the Guiding Lands when tempered. Scarred is a little higher on the list, spoiler alert. I'll address it more so when I get to him. Brute Tigrex. Only slightly better than regular Tigrex. Tempered Brute Tigrex is a problem. It also has a roar blast it does, which is very unique from what I've seen from other Tigrex variants. Its size can pressure you, its moves can pressure you. It has a roar combo that makes him unpredictable at times. Otherwise, his gear, for some reason, got a nerf because of like I think it was like free meal or something, or scavenger or something, some eating skill. I don't know why Capcom decided to do that, but it was a weird thing involving Brute Tigrex. But I think he's definitely harder than regular Tigrex and the others on this list. Tempered in the Guiding Lands, good luck. Is all I have to say on that one. But he's not that bad. Ebony Odogarin, though, Bleed and Dragon Blight, can cripple your elemental damage and can cripple your HP and can actually rush you down with its attacks. Yeah, Ebony Odogarin is definitely a bigger threat. I love his gear, love the fights with him, but boy can he give you a challenge when he's tempered, especially in the Guiding Lands. Guiding Lands is also a big deciding factor of my list in this, to be honest, but Ebony does Bleed and Dragon Blight. He spams it. So you have to go in with raw damage to fight him. Bleed, again, you need like sushi fish and jerky. Or jerky for that matter, but yeah. Ebony is a worthwhile hunt. His gear is also worthwhile. Heavy on dragon and crits, I believe. So worth it. I loved using his gear when I got into it. But neither Odogaron comes close to Zinogre, who got a pretty good buff going into Iceborne. His Fulgur bugs do more damage. His charge is a little more unpredictable. His gear is still really good. His fight is still good, honestly. Really good, in fact, honestly. It's one of the best in the game. I love fighting Zinogre. He is by far one of my favorite fanged wyverns in the entire series. I very much speak highly of him. I think his tempered form is his hardest, and definitely is harder than the others in B tier. If you don't know what you're doing, and if you can't evade his slams, especially his paw slams, then you're gonna get trounced pretty easily. But he is slower. He is slower than his other adaptations, which makes the fight a little more doable. But he can still rush you down and can still hurt you pretty bad. So be careful, is what I say to that. Now, ending our B tier. Fulgur Anjanath. One of the grossest monsters in the game, in my opinion, because he can sneeze on you. He is shock dependent, a subspecies of Anjanath who loves to sneeze at you to do like water blight, and I think it's water blight or like thunder blight he does. I think it's either of those two. I know it's thunder blight, but I don't know if he water blights you as well. But his electricity hurts when he's fully charged and he rams at you with it fully charged. It's a one shot if you're not properly geared, especially tempered. He could stun lock you pretty easily as well, making him a harder fight. But his gear is okay. His gear is definitely better than regular Anjanath's. But beware of this sneezing brute wyvern, for he will give you a scuffle. Now, going into A tier, where we get into the hard territory, the harder territory. This is where you're going to see some familiar faces for veterans. So, back to the Yingaruga talk. Scarred Yingaruga is a lot more fierce than regular Yingaruga. All the fireballs it shoots, it could spray like a river. No, a tidal wave of fireballs, and it can hurt you pretty bad. He can spam it, making him more annoying. His speed he's definitely a lot more faster and does more damage than regular Garuga. And he's a lot more meaner, especially. But he is still fairly doable, especially in the Guiding Lands, but he is a lot more harder than regular Garuga. A lot more fiercer and a lot more meaner. Same moves, extra moves in the side, but more damage. And more speed, which is why he's above the top 5 of B tier. And is the bottom of A tier. These two I could talk about at the same time. Now, yeah, these two have been a mixed bag for me in both World and Iceborne. While Tiestra got a buff in Iceborne, his tempered variant in World was still a problem for me. Still very hard. I could not solo him in World. I had to do it with other hunters to kill him. His Nova very much can one-shot you. His explosions can easily take like 70% of your damage if you're not properly geared. His Arc Tempered variant is very, very hard. But he got a bunch of buffs in Iceborne that improve his fire damage. His flames can easily chip your health to like 80%. He can chip away 80% of your HP with his flames. Basically, his flames alone can easily chip you pretty bad compared to his World variant. So I recommend steering a lot of caution going against Tiestra. Lunastra, yeah, she's a mixed bag. She is pure cancer in World. Her arc-tempered fight is horrible from start to finish. Her flames can easily just burn away all your HP without knowing it. Flash bombing her, forget about it. Flash bombing ensures that she Novas faster, which can be used as a good strategic tool to like depower her. But oh my god, does it do a lot of damage. If you can't eat fast enough your jerky or sushi fish, you are dead. You are just dead. You are incinerated before you know it. You do not want to deal with Arc-Tempered Lunastra, and you have to for a specific gear. Whew. I hated fighting her in World. Iceborne, though, she got nerfed. And why? Because her moves come out differently. She discharges more so by blowing flames at you in a specific motion, as opposed to Nova-ing like she was able to in World. But that makes her slightly less predictable in doing so. But her damage has definitely been reduced going into Iceborne as a Master Rank monster. I guess that was Capcom's way of saying that they hear the fan base talking about how bad she is to fight, and thought we could balance her out in Iceborne. But that's just my opinion, basically. These two together are pure AIDS, if you want my opinion. They are cancer. When they bond, their explosion does a lot more damage than they would do separately. No, fighting them together is horrible. It's worse than the rats on the bottom of the list. So, you either have to deal with Blast or Fire Blight dealing with these guys. And your mantles can't help. I think Fireproof Mantle helps for Lunastra's flames? I'm not 100% sure. But always bring healing items and have it on deck when they Nova. Otherwise, you are going to die fast. Oof. Boy, are they horrible when they do that. But, good gear overall. I still love Tiestra's sword and shield to this day. And his armor. Frostfang Bariath. I forgot about his name just now. I hate Bariath. Frostfang is slightly better, I feel. I enjoy hunting Frostfang a little more so than regular Bariath because he's slower. He is definitely slower. His weapons are worth it. Strongest ice weapons in the game, in my opinion. Good crits, great ice damage. What makes him better than regular Bariath are his moves and the fact that they do more damage. But I didn't struggle as badly as I did with him than I did with regular Bariath at first. Going into him, like, I don't know if he has a tempered variant, I forgot. But I know that he gets more harder as you hunt him out to grind. So I struggled a little bit with him. But yeah, he is definitely harder than regular Bariath, especially when you're trying to grind for parts. But a worthwhile fight. I will speak a little more highly of Frostfang than I would for regular Bariath. Take it for what you will. If you're gonna assume that I love this monster, you thought wrong. I'm not a fan of Bariath in general, but I enjoy Frostfangs a little more than regular, in all honesty. Brachydius. You saw this one coming. Blast and Slime. He can rush you down with his fists. No, he's still a threat in this game, honestly. That he fits so well in Iceborne. He fits so well. And if you don't have anything for Blast, you're going to take a lot of damage. And if you can't handle his enraged form, you're gonna get hurt pretty bad. And all of his explosive damages do hit you pretty bad, basically. So if you don't have a white ice weapon, or if you don't have, like, I think it's deodorant to get rid of Blast Blight, you're in for a tough ride, honestly. I recommend being careful when fighting Brachydius. However, you can breaking his parts are not hard. He is definitely one of my favorite brute wyverns. And yeah, if you can avoid his moves, you can mount him or clutch claw him. If you could try to stun lock him before he outright rushes and pressures you to the point of where you can't heal, then it's a doable fight. It is pretty doable, but he is still hard to deal with. You thought Basilgeuse would be worse? No. Seething Basilgeuse is much worse. Much more annoying. The mutated eggs do much more damage. It's harder to approach. And he has a Unabomber attack where he dive bombs you and blows up everything in the vicinity, making his attack and AoE much more greater. And does a lot more damage. It can also one-shot you if you're not prepared. Same as regular Basilgeuse, but better. Much more damage, much more annoying. But the gear, still worth it in my opinion. His gear is still worth it in my opinion. But oh boy, is Seething Basilgeuse an annoyance. Black Veil Valhazak. His gear is awesome. I liked fighting him. His Effluvium and Miasma are worse. And the chip damage is a lot more worse than regular Valhazak. But his gear is 100% worth it. The healing factor on the gear itself carried me through Iceborne. If not for that, I would have struggled a little bit more so. But yeah, the healing factor that is very prominent for the Hazak gear, I 100% recommend to newbies. And to those who want to continue playing the series, even after the fact that the game is basically done. It's also one of the reasons why I stopped playing, because there's no more new updates, and I've already beaten every single monster in this game. So yeah. The Miasma's worse, his attacks are a lot more worse. He drops spores. He is covered in spores that erupt. And it makes the fight a lot more difficult if you don't have Effluvium resistance. However, the chip damage is still real, so you have to really monitor your HP when you're fighting him, to be honest. It is very, very hard, but doable. Despite the difficulty, I still recommend the grind. It was worth it, in my opinion. It was very worth it. Yeah. Namiel. Yes, Namiel. Water and electricity. Water and Thunderblight. Namiel's moves are a mixed bag. I liked hunting him, honestly. This one I consider second easy to Black Veil, to solo if you really know what you're doing. I believe I soloed her Arc Tempered as well. And yeah, she can stun you, she can Thunderblight you, she can Water Blight you. The water itself, she detonates with her electricity, making it, giving her more area of effect damage, AoE. She also has a Nova where she she puts out an entire puddle and explodes it, making much more of a wide radius of damage, like a giant explosion of water that just detonate off a chemical reaction. She could push you with the tire waves to disorient your movement with the water beneath you. I think it's the moss in the Coral Highlands that can absorb the water. I think it's that absorbs the water. I forget the slingshot ammo that actually does that. Someone in the comment section can remind me. But yeah, her gear is also really good. Very elemental based for the weapons. Breaking her parts is hard. Again, her Arc Tempered form is pretty formidable. Very hard compared to the rest of the monsters on this list. But a fun fight nonetheless. Can't talk sometimes. Stygian Zinogre. I love Stygian Zinogre. It is basically regular Zinogre, but better. It's got a couple more moves than Zinogre. Dragon Blight all around. Arc-Tempered Stygian Zinogre is very hard to deal with, and can one-shot you if you're not prepared. He can claw you for like almost all your HP. The Dragon Blight can stop you from doing some elemental damage. I have always gone for raw damage, but yeah, this guy does a lot of damage, and I had to grind this guy out in order to get his set, which I mained for like the rest of the game, basically. I just loved the gear so much. It just spoke to me in terms of how it looked. I loved how it looked. But yeah, a good fight overall. Very hard, but doable. Shara Ishvalda, I think this one's named. I think that's her name. She's basically this series' variant of Gaia, in the sense that this monster has two phases. One where it's covered in rocks, and one where it's not. It loves to manipulate the ground around him. It's another boss monster that manipulates the environment around you. And it's where you have to use the environment against her in the first half is where the real gameplay begins. Now, second phase is where it gets worse, where if the entire ground is sand, Shara Ishvalda can blow it up, causing more damage. Her blasts also do a lot of damage to you. Mounting them is very, very hard, making it just mounting her alone is excessively hard. You have to time it just right in order to mount her and take her down. Clutch clawing her is also a very tasking thing, especially since you have to angle it right in order to like launch her into the pillars of the final phase, basically. And breaking her parts is also a very difficult task as well. No, this monster gave me a run for my money here and there. More so if I didn't have the Black Veil set in fighting her. She was a very formidable monster, basically. But gear is good for defense, honestly. A very defensive set and a very defensive monster, basically. And a formidable one. Alright. Katana's favorite monster. I'm just kidding, man. I'm not gonna step on anyone's shoulders here. But Kirin. Yeah, Kirin. I don't know what Capcom was thinking about this horse. You thought the lightning from this monster was bad enough, honestly. But he can grid the lightning. He turns it. He can laser you with it. He can paralyze you with it. He can stun you with it. Stun lock you too with a good portion of his moves. But the grid itself was just oof. I hated hunting him as an arc-tempered monster. It was very, very hard. Gear was worth it though, but boy did this monster give me a run for my money. The grid, I think, is by far the worst part about him. I think Kirin's strongest form is when he did not have a horn. Broken horn Kirin is probably the hardest version of Kirin in the game. And if that monster was, if you can repeat hunt that monster like you could with any other, he'd be up here. Well, not up here, but he'd be like the top of A tier, to be honest, because the armor that he gets from being angry is hard to penetrate. It is very difficult to deal with. Oof. I would not want to hunt this horse again. In Iceborne. If he comes back to Rise, I'll think about it, but oof, boy did they do Kirin dirty by giving him like the laser ability for the lightning and the grid ability. It was horrible to deal with. Oof. Steer caution when dealing with them. I advise range and explosives. Range and explosives, and you're good to go. That and try to predict the grid. he is pretty unpredictable as a monster itself. All I recommend is be careful. Velkhana. Fun fact, I literally bent my controller in half dealing with this monster in the beta of Iceborne. I hated hunting her in the beta. 15 minutes you had to hunt Velkhana. I hated hunting her in the beta. When she got into the game. Actually, no, if this was beta Velkhana, she'd be up here. No questions asked. She would be top 6. But holy moly, did I hate hunting her in the beta. 15 minutes, hit really hard. Her tail was very annoying. Her ice attacks can actually immobilize you, making you stick to the ground for her to do her tail attacks. She spams the tail moves. Breaking her tail doesn't help either because she could just construct her tail back with ice, basically. So cutting the tail off actually doesn't help. It hinders you more so. You could depower her to get rid of the ice armor on her to do more damage. The ice attacks are very deadly, especially in her Arc Temper state. Her Arc Temper state is the closest you get to Beta Velkhana. And to this day, I am happy that I dealt with her accordingly, and I got her gear. Boy, was she a pure annoyance in the late game. Whew. Boy. That was a bad memory I didn't want to remember. Raging Brachydius is up here. Raging Brachydius is not as bad as it was in GU and in 4 Ultimate. In this game, you hit its appendages, its slimed up appendages, and it just drops to the ground and detonates, giving you more time to evade when dealing with it. Otherwise, yeah. I love his final phase. I feel like he was a little underdone. I honestly think they could have done more with Raging Brachydius, but it seems like the development team was rushed when it comes down to dealing with, like, releasing him out to the public as a hunt. Which is why there's only, like, 1 hunt for him in the entire game. Which is fine for what it is. His gear is still really good, his weapons are really good, but it's kind of sad. They really could have done more with them. The nerfs are definitely good. It makes him less of a problem, but if not dealt with correctly, especially in his final phase, he's a massive threat. Final phase, you can't actually teleport out with a Farcaster. You can't. Well, I think you can't. I'm not gonna swear to it. But once you go to the final phase for Raging Brachydius, you can't actually leave it. He closes you in. You are stuck. You are locked in with him, basically. So my strategy for you is remind him. You're not locked in here with him. He is locked in with you. And trounce him, basically. The slime on the ground has a different property than it does in the beginning of the fight, where it chips away at your HP the longer you sit in it, and he does detonate it after some time, but it is escapable. The damage aspect, along with the size aspect, the hitboxes are unreasonably broken on him, but his speed is still pretty abysmal compared to his other variants. But boy, does he hit hard. I could solo him, and I've done it before. But boy, he was more satisfying to hunt in Iceborne than he was in the earlier games. The earlier games, he is complete destruction. I hated fighting him in the earlier games because of the fact is you can't go close with him. His appendages explode on you when you hit them. They made it a little more easier in this game because of it. So, yeah. Okay. Ruiner Nergigante. I needed a minute to remember his name. Like I said, it's been like 2 to 3 years since I've played, so don't harp on me too much for not remembering everything. But I did think about this long and hard, so don't don't pelt me too much on in the comment section of this video. But Ruiner Gigante, even Arc Tempered, is not that bad, honestly. I contemplated putting him up here, but I could solo him if I wanted to in the Guiding Lands. Maybe not now because I'm completely rusty, but I loved hunting Ruiner. His gear is really good. It's basically better Nergigante with 2 phases, basically. And the fact that he can bleed you and does more damage. Has slightly more HP as well. His parts regrow like the original. You get to find him twice in the story. Let's see. Outside of that, it's mostly like, it's a little harder to break because you need a specific sharpness for some of his spikes. But he is doable. He is for sure doable. And his gear is very much worth it. He was a fun fight, even in the Guiding Lands, where he can easily one-shot you with his moves. I put him in top 3 for Guiding Lands, to be honest. You're going to see the others in a moment. Gold and Silver Wraths are up here. They are very hard. And no, I didn't solo them. They were very hard to deal with. The damage has been amplified. Their moves are still pretty bad to deal with. Actually, they're worse than they were in Monster Hunter GU in the earlier games. They both got one-hit KO moves that were very hard to deal with. Dealing with them together is complete cancer. I rival them with the Tiestra and Lunastra of the game. A lot of their scales can make you deflect your attacks, basically, and it's hard to actually break their parts. I went in with raw damage, and it was basically a long game to wear them out in order for me to win. So be patient and exert caution when dealing with the Gold and Silver Wraths of this game. I recommend the Gold Wrath gear. That was my final set I actually used in the game for my final couple videos. And I'll explain why in a moment. Now, Kushala. You are a train wreck. Kushala in World was a complete and utter train wreck. What were they thinking? Making Kushala by far one of the hardest Elder Dragons in the game. His wind was broken. His wind pressure was broken. His damage was broken. Arc tempered and otherwise. Tempered in the Guiding Lands. Both were broken freaking fights. They were doable, but oh my god, have I never struggled this hard against a Kushala. Against a Kushala Daora. Oh my god. The last time I've ever had this issue was in the earlier games when it was his rusted variant, but this guy takes it to another level. I swear he was programmed on some kind of steroid because he is very hard to hunt. His gear is okay, to be honest, but boy does he hurt. He hits and he's very annoying. I think the absence of Chameleos also adds to the fact of why Kushala is very, very hard in this game. But boy, did they butcher him. They buffed him. They buffed him up to 11 with his abilities. Oh my god, I hated being locked into his wind with my Rock City Mantle because it chipped your HP in seconds and killed you. Oof. I have been demolished numerous times by this monster, both tempered and arc tempered. Both World and Iceborne variants were broken as hell. And still are. So, I wish you good luck if you want to grind this train wreck of a monster. Because it's not fun. It most certainly is not fun. Alright. These two require a little bit of explanation. So, Rajang tempered in the Guiding Lands is by far his hardest version. His hardest variant is the one in the Guiding Lands, tempered. He is top 3 in my group. Ruiner Gigante is number 3, as where Tempered Rajang in the Guiding Lands is number 2 on my list. So they hit very, very hard. Their transformations, especially when they gain like the red armor, is a lot more hard. Their elemental slam can one-shot you so bad. Their beam can hurt you really bad. They're very fast. They can grab you and easily throw you. They can literally just pressure and rush into you so bad. It's not even funny. They also have the lowest HP of the other monsters in this list. It's basically the normal version of Nergigante. Both Nergigante and Rajang have the lowest HP of these monsters. If you want an honest opinion of mine, but Furious Rajang was frustrating to deal with. Furious Rajang was very frustrating to deal with. His tail is broken, so the only way you can actually stagger him is by hitting his head. But he is hard. He is hard as hell to deal with. I hated hunting him. Well, not 100% hated it, honestly. Turf War and Havoc was fun to watch, but boy, did he give me a run for my money on numerous occasions. My pack and I have a few bits of stories on this monster, honestly. A few good videos on it too. When you look at when you go back and watch them, you'll see exactly why they were very hard to fight, honestly. Gear is worth it though. Their gear is 100% worth it. I love their gear. Their gear was very fun to use. To round off A tier, Savage Devil Joe. And I contemplated on this because Savage Devil Joe, tempered in the Guiding Lands, is complete cancer. He can one-shot you with almost any of his moves. Almost any of his moves can one-shot you. I have proof. I have proof in my videos of him doing that to me. But oh man, does he hurt. He is heavy on the Dragon Breath. You can't Clutch Claw to his head when he's angry because you take chip damage from the dragon essence that surround his face. So you have to be very, very quick when you're trying to slam him to a wall with it. Otherwise, his moves 100% hurt you. His Atomic Breath, Atomic Breath. I meant to say his Dragon Breath. I was thinking of Godzilla for a second there, but his Dragon Breath, he could charge it onto the ground after he trips you and blows you up with it, causing massive damage, and could potentially one-shot you. His gear, again, is worth it, for the most part, if you want a good dragon weapon, but boy, is he a bitch to fight. He is very, very hard. Alright, and here we go. Top 5. Top 5 monsters in the game. Top 5. So, This deviates a little bit from the list I already pre-made for this video. So, I'm going to give you a little preview of what my previous list looked like before I give you the actual one. This is where I started to change my mind on the ordering here. This is what it originally looked like for my list, but after some thinking, I had to move some stuff around because I have to really be honest with myself with this. And these monsters are top 5 because these are the hardest monsters in the game to solo. Very much so. Have people done it? Yes, of course they have. It's not impossible, but it is excruciatingly hard to do if you don't have the right gear. And that's where the quote-unquote meta is, which I never follow or agree with, because I want to have fun with the game, which I still do. Just not this game anymore, mind you. So, here's where the ordering starts to differ. I wanted to put Elatrian higher, but I can solo him, as a matter of fact. But it requires me to run a specific build. It required me to run a specific build in order to pull it off. So, I don't know what Capcom was thinking about Elatrian. The pack and I still have conversations about how bad this monster is. Oh my god. I think the worst design, the worst design flaw in all of World is the elemental DPS check you have to go through with this guy. It was awful. So many times my pack and I have hunted him, and so many times did he just wipe us out in one shot. It made for some hilarious content, but oh my god, was hunting him very hard. After being told about how to actually beat him and actually did it, and actually doing it, I felt very happy with myself. Credit to Muzu. Credit to Muzukashi for the strategy, honestly, if you're watching this. I still loved hunting him after that, to be honest, because it just meant I now have a way to beat him, honestly. He is very, very hard. If you can't do the elemental DPS check, you are dead. Every single time, he'll Nova you. And that's going to be the ongoing theme of the top 5, is that all of them can Nova you. And can one-shot you with no problem whatsoever. So, Elatrian is an unstable monster. Shifts between multiple stages. Initially it was fire, ice, thunder, and dragon. Now they've added water and to the mix. Along with, let's see, it's fire, water, ice, dragon, thunder. I think that's all of them. I think that is all of them. He could do 5 elements now instead of 4. Dragon, fire, ice, water, and thunder. So you have to really focus on the weaknesses of each phase he's in order to actually do enough DPS. And his primary phases are fire and ice, which he can actually shift between like water and thunder depending on the stages. So I believe it's part breaks to specific parts to stop him from changing to specific stages. I think it's break the wings to stop him from going to lightning stage, or and then I think it's break the horns to stop him from changing from specific stages after the Nova. But even then, he is a very, 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 very formidable fight. His gear is worth it, honestly. I like his gear. It does a lot of damage, and it does have a lot of like resistances and defense. But oh my god, is he a pain to deal with? If you can't DPS him in terms of element, you are not gonna beat. You're not gonna win. And there are videos of people doing it without it, but that's the overlying factor that makes him one of the hardest monsters in the game. Definitely top 5 in my opinion. Funny story, quite the story as a matter of fact. After figuring out the strategy, I've tried coining in on every single pack member about that hasn't actually beaten him yet on trying to assist them. Only a few have actually agreed to this, and I assisted them with beating them. The videos are in the playlist at the end of the video, so you'll see what I mean. And yeah, then I told him it wasn't that bad because I found out how to beat him. And as long as you follow the strategy, you know how to beat him. That's as simple as that. They did, and we were victorious. One major frustration out of the way. Oof. Did I hate fighting him? For the first time, honestly. It was very frustrating, but I refused to give up. Alright, Kluv Teroth. These 4 monsters I have not soloed once. I have not been able to solo. All of them beat me very easily. Kluv Teroth only got stronger from World into Iceborne. And I love her fight. I love her sieges. They're siege monster. Both it and Sappy Jiva are siege monsters. They're both fun to fight, but boy, did they damage you a lot. They gave Kluv Teroth a quote-unquote Nova, where it's literally a golden shower at the end of the 3rd phase. And if you can't like do enough DPS, or if you can't break a specific amount of parts in the 1st phase, you can't go to the 2nd phase. And if you can't do enough DPS in the second phase, you can't go into the third phase, and so on and so forth to the final phase, basically. And initially, it was just break the horns, and you win and you beat the quest. Now it's the idea of you can kill her, but the actual fight in master rank is a lot more harder than you think. Molten Gold, and I think it's either Molten Gold, where it's thunder damage that she is more afflictable to, considering gold is a conductor. And then it's Hardened Gold for the ice moves, basically. It's ice and thunder for the weaknesses based on where you are in the fight, basically. You want thunder attacks in order to break her golden parts easily. Her gear is 100% worth it. I love her gear from start to finish. In fact, it's carried me here and there, especially in the beginning of Iceborne, after doing her hunts. You can do it solo if you have the right gear, after like watching a bunch of like playthroughs on how to do it solo. Or you can just try to find the right amount of people to hunt with for this, basically. I did it with a bunch of randos, I did it with MPN, and I did it with my pack, eventually. Safi'jiiva. Safi'jiiva is a pain to hunt, honestly. You have to do a lot of damage, and it's hard to beat him the first time around. You have to literally whittle him down in each hunt in order to get the kill. Grinding for his parts was hard as hell. His armor parts, his armor set is worth making if you use it properly. In fact, it's because of Safi'jiiva that I was actually able to defeat Elatrian, because I learned that bowgun and elemental bowgun plus the damage you can do with the repeating damage you can do with Safi'jiiva's armor made it a lot more easier to inflict the elemental DPS check onto Elatrian. So it's thanks to that monster that I was able to beat Elatrian. But both monsters are very hard. They are siege monsters. If you could solo them, you give yourself a platinum medal for beating them solo. Honestly, it is very hard to do. I've never been able to do it. I have not been able to do it at all. So all the times I've beaten them was with the pack or with other people. Behemoth. Now Behemoth is another event monster, part of the Final Fantasy collab, as a matter of fact, for Final Fantasy 14. I never got a chance to make a video on that, and I honestly never will, to be honest, because I hated hunting him. Very dependent on the mechanics from Final Fantasy 14 itself. You can either pull aggro to make sure your teammates do a lot more damage. You have to make sure all the comets are there in place, so that when he does his meteor that one-shots you, you can evade it or block it with the comets, basically. If you can't do that, you're dead. Extreme Behemoth, forget about it. Extreme Behemoth, no. Extreme Behemoth is very, 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 very hard. I actually did Extreme Behemoth. Mark my words, I did do it. I honestly didn't record it. I regret not recording that hunt. Otherwise, oh my god, was it the luckiest. It was the luckiest hunt I've ever been on for Extreme Behemoth. And after that victory, I was not able to replicate it. I still lost over and over again to this thing to make its armor. Oh my god, do I not want to hunt Behemoth again for as long as I live. That hunt was pure AIDS. It was hard as hell. Oof. You want to do it, by all means. By all means. Just be careful. And make sure you manipulate your surroundings. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to beat him. And you have to make sure to survive every meteor attack he does. Otherwise, you're going to fail. If there's no comets around when he does it, it's over. Extreme Behemoth can one-tap you with almost all of its moves, especially the lightning that I can conjure up. So, good luck. Good luck is all I say. And if you've done it, kudos. Give you firm handshakes. I know a couple of my pack members did it. I did it. So on and so forth. Now, rounding up my list Fatalis, the hardest monster in the game, and the final monster of the game. The one dragon that took me over 100 attempts to actually beat with a greatsword, just to prove that I can do it. Otherwise, this monster, just like Elatrian, forced me to change my playstyle, where I had to use Gold Rathian armor, Gold Rathian switch axe, along with like Kluv Teroth buffed, in order to actually fight him. The trick is you have to break his horns. Otherwise, if you don't, you're fighting a variant of like you're fighting Fatalis before he turns crimson. The best way to describe it. He has a Mega Flare, and if you're in his cone of attack when he does it, it one-shots you. Almost all of his moves one-shot you, and you could fight me all you want on this take on Fatalis in the comment section of this video if you want to, but he is 100% random. There's nothing telegraphed about this dragon. There is absolutely nothing telegraphed about him. If you figured out his patterns, then I congratulate you. I congratulate you. You get a platinum medal and firm handshakes from me, basically. You have my praise. And if you're better than me because of that, far be it from me to say otherwise, honestly. I was not able to solo him. I was not able to beat him. It took me over 100 attempts. He was the final monster to hunt. All of my pack members basically gave up when this guy came out. And to this day, they still haven't killed him. I think only a couple have killed him, to be honest, from my opinion. But oh my god, does Fatalis... his gear is the best in the game, as it always has been. His moves are crazy, surprisingly weak to fire because he can manipulate fire. But oh my god, blast was basically what I needed. You have to find him in a specific way in order to actually stand a chance. Otherwise, his final phase is the one where it's the absolute worst. I spent half of every hunt fighting him, just avoiding his attacks in the final phase, because those attacks themselves can easily one-shot to like 2 to 3 tap you. It's horrible. If you don't have the right build, or if you don't have the right team to actually take him down, then oh boy, are you having a hard time. I can't tell you how many times I've timed out because we were not able to do enough damage to him to the final phase. It was horrible, but a very satisfying ending to a very good game, honestly. And that is my full tier list, from easiest to hardest, in order, for the monsters here. As for Iceborne as a whole, I enjoyed playing it. I liked the game, but hear me now, I'm never playing the game again. I'm never playing this game again. I contemplated doing a revisited video on this, and just thought, no. I'm never playing this game ever again. And I'm not going to say any more about it. So yeah. I felt like my ending for Monster Hunter World Iceborne was fleeting and not well executed. So consider this my last hurrah for anyone who wants to try the game. I very much recommend it to all of you who are interested in a Monster Hunter game. It's fun. It's long, mind you. It is a long game. It's worth the grind. And more specifically, yeah. Yeah, I give it a 7 to 8 out of 10 when it comes down to it. The mechanics are a little questionable. I love the open world aspect. A few of it slowed down the game. I love all the monsters in the game. Well, most of them, as I've mentioned. I had fun hunting with my pack when I played the game initially. The end game was very stressful, very depressing, and just not fulfilling. The end game of Iceborne is actually one of the reasons why I'll never play the game again. Enough said about that. I had to at least say that, but boy. Yeah. A definite recommended play if you want to play it. Don't take my words to heart about this tier list. It's just my opinion on easiest to hardest. There's no bias at all when it comes down to this list. I thought about it long and hard when making this list. So, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed. This is my last hurrah for Iceborne. The full playlist is going to be at the end of the video and in the description of this video. Feel free to drop a like if you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comment section of which video you liked the most in my Iceborne series. And if you have any disagreements with this list, put them in the comment section of this video. Be as friendly as possible when it comes down to your criticism. And yeah, thank you all for watching. See you all in either Monster Hunter GU or Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak.